All right, very good. So, turn, if you would, quickly to 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 11. All right, this has been our filter verse. So as we've been going through Samuel and Saul and now David, we're into David's life here. Right? David's now king when we're entering into some of the big events that happen in his life. And the filter verse that we've been looking at here is 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 11. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 11 says, "Now all these things happened unto them for ensamples, and they are written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come." All right, so we've been looking at the things that have gone on in Samuel's life, have gone on in Saul's life, in Jonathan's life, in Abner's life, in Saul, Jonathan, Abner, David, right? And that's where we are now. And these things are written for our admonition, for our learning, for our growth, for our, dude, pay attention and look at what they did and don't do that, right? And that's what's going on here, right? So we've got to keep that in the back of your mind. These are examples, right? So as we progress then, let's take a look. Today's lesson is going to be a little bit different. You're going to need to have a bookmark in two spots. The first one being 2 Samuel chapter 10. 2 Samuel chapter 10, which is where we're progressing from in the lessons that we've come from so far, right? So that's where we are. But there is also a matching account to 2 Samuel chapter 10 in 1 Chronicles chapter 19, all right? And we're going to look at this today. So we should all be familiar with the story of David's adultery with Bathsheba, right? Okay, so we're going to take a different spin on it today and see how it can be an example for us. All right, now hopefully you'll get all that by the end. All right, so in 2 Samuel chapter 10, we'll start there. 2 Samuel chapter 10. Hopefully my bookmarks don't go flying all over the place here. Verses 17 through 19. "And when it was told David, he gathered all Israel together and passed over Jordan, and came to Helam, and the Syrians set themselves in array against David and fought with him. And the Syrians fled before Israel, and David slew the men of 700 chariots of the Syrians, and 40,000 horsemen, and smote Shobach, the captain of their host, who died there. And when all the kings that were servants to Hadarezer saw that they were smitten before Israel, they made peace with Israel and served them. So the Syrians feared to help the children of Ammon anymore." All right, so in 2 Samuel chapter 10, we have David doing what? David is fighting and winning, right? So David is fighting, right? And he's fighting against two people here. He's got the Syrians and he's got the children of Ammon, right? Okay? So he's got the Syrians and the children of Ammon. The key part here that I want you to remember is we're looking at the life of David. Okay? So here, David is active. David is fighting, right? David took out a group and he is fighting. Now, if you remember the story of David and Bathsheba, that's an important fact to note, right? Okay, and we'll get there in a little bit. So now if you flip to 1 Chronicles 19, 1 Chronicles 19, ironically, also verses 17 through 19. "And it was told David, and he gathered all Israel and passed over Jordan, and came upon them, and set the battle in array against them. So when David had put the battle in array against the Syrians, they fought with him. But the Syrians fled before Israel, and David slew of the Syrians 7,000 men which fought in chariots, and 40,000 footmen, and killed Shobach, the captain of the host. And when the servants of Hadarezer saw that they were put to the worse before Israel, they made peace with David, and became his servants. Neither would the Syrians help the children of Ammon anymore. All right, so now does that sound familiar? That sounds very familiar, right? There's a lot of the same details that are happening in 2 Samuel chapter 10 and 1 Chronicles chapter 19. All right, so this same event is happening in both chapters. All right, so we see that, right? Okay, good. Because going forward, that we kind of need that baseline point of starting from going forward. So now, if we go back to 2 Samuel chapter 11. So we just finished 2 Samuel chapter 10, verses 17 through 19. And now we're continuing with verse 11, verse 1. And it came to pass, after the year was expired, at the time when kings go forth to battle, that David sent Joab and his servants with him and all Israel, and they destroyed the children of Ammon and besieged Rabbah, but David tarried still at Jerusalem. Okay, so now what do we have happening in 2 Samuel 11? Okay, David's at Jerusalem, right? Where's everybody else? Right? They're out in battle, right? And it came to pass after the year was expired, when the kings go out to battle, right? So Joab is out there. Everyone else is at the battle after that 1 year. Okay, so that's kind of a key detail that we have going on to match up with what's going on in 1 Chronicles chapter 20. All right, but David tarried still at Jerusalem. Now, if we carry on through 2 Samuel 11, we have the story of David and Bathsheba, right? And it came to pass in an evening tide that David arose from off his bed and walked upon the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman washing herself, and the woman was very beautiful to look upon. And David sent and inquired after the woman, and one said, "Is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite?" Right? And then it goes on from there in chapter 11 about everything that happened, right? Okay, so that's where we are. So David's at Jerusalem. From this comes the whole Bathsheba incident. Everybody else is at the battle. Joab, children of Ammon again. All right? We're all on the same page. Right, Dennis? Okay. All right. And now Shirley's got her phone off, so it's all good. Right, Shirley? All right, good. So if we flip to 1 Chronicles chapter 20. 1 Chronicles chapter 20. Remember, we just read 1 Chronicles 19, 7 through 19. And now we're continuing in 1 Chronicles 20, verse 1. And it came to pass after the year was expired, at the time that kings go out to battle, Joab led forth the power of the army and wasted the country of the children of Ammon and came and besieged Rabbah. But David tarried at Jerusalem. And Joab smote Rabbah and destroyed it. Okay, so here we have in 1 Chronicles 20, the same account of what just happened in 2 Samuel 11:1. Okay, the year's expired. Joab's going out to battle against Ammon again, against the city of Rabbah. David, in both verses, is at Jerusalem. Okay? Now, this is where the stories start to diverge a bit, is in 2 Samuel 11, it goes into the details of David and Bathsheba and all that, where 1 Chronicles 20 continues on with the story about how Joab won. David took the crown in verse 2 from off the king's head, and it weighed a talent of gold, right? Okay, so it goes on with that end of the story. David took the crown off their head, a talent of gold, precious stones in it, and it was set upon David's head, and he brought also exceeding much spoil out of that city. And he brought out the people that were in it, and cut them with saws, and with harrows of iron, and with axes. Even so dealt David with all the cities of the children of Ammon, and David and all the people then returned to Israel. Okay? So after Joab took the city of Rabbah, David shows up for the glory part of it, takes the king's crown, right, and finishes things off. That's what's happening there, okay? Now, if we go back to 2 Samuel chapter 12, Second Samuel chapter 12. Okay, verses 27 through 30. Okay, so there's a huge jump in 2 Samuel from the verses that matched in 2 Samuel 11:1. Now it's jumping all the way through 12 when the story of David as Bathsheba is done, where the story of where Nathan comes to David is done and says, "Thou art the man," the child dies, right? And now in 2 Samuel 12:27 through 30, we have the account that we just read in 1 Chronicles 20, verses 2 and 3. And Joab sent messengers to David and said, "I have fought against Rabbah and have taken the cities of waters. Now therefore gather the rest of the people together and encamp against the city and take it, lest I take the city and it be called after my name." And David gathered all the people together and went to Rabbah and fought against it and took it. And he took their king's crown from off his head, the weight whereof was a talent of gold, with the precious stones, and it was set on David's head. And he brought forth the spoil of the city in great abundance. Right? Okay, so here in 2 Samuel 12:27 through 30, we have the same information that we got from 1 Chronicles 20, verses 2 and 3. You see that? Okay, great. So 2 Samuel 12:27 through 30 is this same account. So we have a history in both 2 Samuel and in 1 Chronicles of the same events. So far, fairly exactly. Okay? In between the story information in Chronicles, we have the details of David and Bathsheba, Nathan, etc. in 2 Samuel. Okay? That's what we see going on. We're all on the same page? Smile and nod. All right? We're almost there. All right, great. All right. So, if we go back to 1 Chronicles, all right, if we go back to 1 Chronicles chapter 20, we just read 2 and 3, where the crown of the talent of gold was taken off the king's head and given to David, right? In verse 4 of 1 Chronicles chapter 20, right, end of verse 3, David and all the people returned to Israel. And then we go to verse 4. And it came to pass after this that there arose war at Gezer with the Philistines, at which time Sibbecai the Hushathite slew Sippai, that was of the children of the giant, and they were subdued. Okay, so as Chronicles moves on, he's like, look, we had this incident with Joab and the city of Rabbah of the children of Ammon. David took the crown, and now we're moving on, right? We have another incident where it came to pass after this. Okay, so this is after the city of Rabbah. Okay? We notice those words? Yes? Smile, nod. After this. All right, very good. Okay? Now, if we flip back to 2 Samuel chapter 21, 2 Samuel 21, verse 18. 2 Samuel chapter 21, verse 18. And it came to pass after this that there was again a battle with the Philistines at Gob, when then Sibbecai the Hushathite slew Saph, which was of the sons of the giant. Okay, so this 1 Chronicles 20, verse 4, right? 1 Chronicles 20, verse 4, and this verse here in 2 Samuel 21, verse 18, this is the same guy, what's his name? Sibbecai the Hushathite, killing the same giant. Okay? So his name is spelled different, yes, pronounced different, whatever, but it is the same guy. It's the same guy killing the same big giant guy. Okay? Okay? If we take a look then at verse 19, 2 Samuel 21, verse 19. And there was again a battle in Gob with the Philistines, where Elhanan, the son of Jehoiarigam, a Bethlehemite, slew the brother of Goliath the Gittite, the staff of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. Okay? So now if we flip back to 1 Chronicles 20, verse 5, we just got done with verse 4, now we're into verse 5. And there was war again with the Philistines. And Elhanan, the son of Jair, slew Lamai, the brother of Goliath the Gittite, whose spear was like a weaver's beam. Okay, so here in 2 Samuel 21 and in 1 Chronicles 20, we have matching accounts of what's going on. This guy killed this giant, this guy killed this giant, after we have the story of Rabbah, right? So we have 1 Chronicles 20, verse 5, and 2 Samuel 21, verse 19. We've got the same events going on. Each one separate is its own verse, right? You got a verse in one verse here, same people doing the same thing. Go to the next verse. These same people are doing the same things. Go to the next verse even, right? If we jump down to verses 6 and 7 of 1 Chronicles chapter 20. And yet again there was war at Gath, and there was a man of great stature, whose fingers and toes were 24, 6 on each hand and 6 on each foot. And he also was the son of the giant. But when he defied Israel, Jonathan, the son of Shimei, David's brother, slew him. Okay? If we go back to 2 Samuel 21, 2 Samuel 21, verses 20 and 21. And there was yet a battle in Gath, where was a man of great stature, that had on every hand 6 fingers, and on every foot 6 toes, 24 in number. And he also was born to the giant. And when he defied Israel, Jonathan, the son of Shimei, the brother of David, slew him. Right? Okay? So we have corresponding accounts. I can't spell Chronicles. There we go. 20 verse 6. And in 2 Samuel 21 verses 20 and 21. Right? Okay. So now, just to make sure we're all on the same page, I know there's a lot of words. Okay? We've got David fighting in 2 Samuel chapter 10. He's fighting against the Syrians. Right? We have the corresponding account in 1 Chronicles 19. Okay? Then as we progress the next event that is listed there, David sends Joab off to fight with the children of Ammon. Right? And David is at Jerusalem. In 2 Samuel, we now have 2 chapters worth of David and Bathsheba. We now have Nathan. We have the child that dies, etc. And we pick back up where 2 Samuel and Chronicles match with the crown being taken off the king of Rabbah's head, the talent of gold, the whole precious stones thing, right? And now David has that crown. Then we have in Chronicles the listing of this guy killed this giant. We now jump to 2 Samuel 21:18, where those accounts now match again, where this guy killed this giant. The next verse in both chapters is this guy killed this giant. Next verse in both chapters is now this guy killed this giant. All right, so we kind of have a history of what's going on and a track record of these things matching. Randy. Baby called God, right? All right, so now, the reason we've laid this track all down for us, right, taking the last 20 minutes to lay this down, is because in 2 Samuel 21, we started off in 18, 19, and then 20 and 21. But before verse 18, we have verses 15 through 17. And 15 starts off, moreover, the Philistines had yet war again with Israel. And David went down, and his servants with him, and fought against the Philistines. And David waxed faint. And Ishbi-Benob, which is of the sons of the giant, the weight of whose spear weighed 300 shekels of brass in weight, he being girded with a new sword, thought to have slain David. But Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, succored him, and smote the Philistine, and killed him. Then the men of David sware unto him, saying, Thou shalt go no more out with us to battle, that thou quench not the light of Israel. So, in between 2 Samuel 10, where David is actively fighting with the Philistines. All right? 2 Samuel 11, David sends Joab out. And he only shows up at Rabbah to take the crown off the king's head. All right? And then in the rest of Chronicles and 2 Samuel 21, other people, other men of David, are killing these giants. Okay? In between that, we have two things that happen. One is the instance of David and Bathsheba, and the other is this instance here where David almost gets killed by this giant. Okay? Somewhere in the middle is where that is. Where exactly? I don't know. Okay? So we have... So here we have David and Bathsheba. And somewhere in here, David almost gets himself killed. All right? So now, if you remember, the filter we want to look at this with is the filter of 1 Corinthians chapter 10, right? These things are examples for us, okay? What can we learn from this? If we can put pieces together, right? This incident with David almost getting killed may have had an effect on him being in Jerusalem and setting off this whole David and Bathsheba thing. Okay? Because think about this. Either way, David is at the end of his active fighting career. So now think about that for a second. What has David's role been? Okay, right? So David's been a leader. How long, Darlene? How long has David been a leader? Since he became king? When? Before that, Chuck says. When? Right? Right? Go all the way back to Goliath. So what has David's role been? He's been a warrior. He's been a leader. He's been taking the men out. He's been a warrior. Right? What else? What has David grown accustomed to? Winning. Right? Winning. How? Okay. The Lord's with him. And what else? Huh? Yeah, he's a fighter, right? In order to be a fighter, you have to be what? Courageous, right? What else? Bobby, say something? No? What else? Skilled. What else? Strong. All right. So now we have a picture, right? David's grown up, even when he was a kid, right? What animals did he deal with as a kid? Lion and the bear, right? God took care of him. When he goes up against Goliath, not a problem. God will take care of me, right? He's got skill. He's a leader. He's been a warrior. He's been used to winning. Go through the years, right? We saw a glimpse of this when Saul was chasing David, right? Round and around the mountain they go. And then finally Saul leaves, and what does David do then? He goes, you know what? There's a step between death and me. You know where I'm going? I'm going to the Philistines. And then Saul will leave me alone. Right? So we see a glimpse of this when Saul retreats and goes to the Philistines for that year and a half. Dave, what did I say? Saul. Yeah, wrong guy. Right? David retreats and then goes to the Philistines for a year and a half. Comes back. He's king in Hebron, 7 years, king over all Israel, right? This is near, David and Bathsheba is near the end of his career, though, his fighting career. All right? Where's all the middle-aged men? Right? You remember the glory days, Dennis? I do, right? Yeah. Bob, you remember the glory days? Yeah. Tony, you remember that glory weekend? Chuck, you remember those glory days? There you go. Right? Clint, you remember that? You're getting there, pal. Right? You remember how long it takes to recover now from a weekend event? It's like, this shouldn't take this long. Right? Mark, you remember the glory days? Yeah, he chuckles, right? Okay. Age sets in, right? Darlene says, age sets in for everybody. Age sets in for everybody. Okay? Only if you live long enough. Yeah. Yeah, only if you live long enough. Okay, very good. What's David's mindset? This is what he had been. And now he almost gets killed. And not only that, he gets taken off the team by his men. Look, you're not good enough. We don't want you to die. We're going to send you back home. We'll take care of the things. You just leave it to us, and you go over there. How you feeling, Clint? How you feeling, though? Oh. Right? Pride, humiliating. Thanks, wife, for that word. Humiliating. How you feeling, Mark? Huh? Say it again? Yeah. Oh, a midlife crisis, Chuck says, right? Because is David near the end of his life? No. Because remember, after this, he has Solomon. Solomon has to grow up enough to become king. So he's not at the end of his life, but he's at the end of his fighting career. Okay? So think about what's going on there. Is David cheerful? Sandy goes, no. You think he's happy with this situation? He's bummed out, Darlene says. Why would you think that? What would lead you to think that? Because she lives it. All right, very good. Because these things are examples to us, right? Go back to 2 Samuel, where's the story? 11? Second Samuel, 2 Samuel 11, verse 2. And it came to pass in an evening tide. Is evening the same as night? No, it's not, right? It's evening. The sun is still out. You can still do stuff. It's early, right? Those kinds of things. And David arose from off his bed. What's David doing? Taking a nap? Matlock's over. He's got to take a quick nap now, right? Okay, what's going on? Yeah, he's kind of having a little pity party, right? He's like, well, now what am I supposed to do? Right? Not quite as bad as Ahab, but probably close. Right? He's not enjoying his situation at all. He got kicked off the team. He's the king, for crying out loud, Clint. Sure, go ahead.
Are you saying that the events took place in 2 Samuel 21:15 that happened before events of 2 Samuel chapter 11?
They could have. There is no direct timeline that I can find. But there are matching periods of time where something sure happened in this area.
So the fact that they don't come chronologically in the scriptures, that doesn't matter?
No, it doesn't. Because if you remember the way, especially look at 2 Samuel, the way it works, it'll throw in different details of a story, progress with a story so far, and then circle back to somebody else. Right? So the Bible is not a directly linear book. Right? Especially as you get into the Samuels, into the Chronicles, and it circles back. Right? And then this king did this, and he lived this long, and he did all this stuff. But the king of Judah up here lived somewhere in here, and then he did this stuff, and then they'll keep circling back and help to confuse you. Right? So that's what's going on. Is there a direct, this is the slot right in there where it fits? No. But there is a correlation in that general time frame where David is fighting, something happens because he's fighting there, and now he is no longer fighting. And his men are. Right? Because you never see him fighting again after that. Randy. Okay. Not sure. Maybe. Okay. But there is a direct correlation of where he is fighting. There's an incident of him now being kicked off the team. And then there is a potential reason for him being at Jerusalem. Right? You'll often hear, or you may have often heard of messages where people will see David, why is he there? Right? He doesn't belong there. He didn't want to be there. Right? He didn't want to be there. Where does he want to be? He wants to be out fighting. That's what he's been doing his whole life. Okay? But what's the point behind it? Right? What's the point behind it? If we take a look at verses like 1 John chapter 2. 1 John chapter 2. Okay, so the reason for this lesson is not necessarily to give and justify David a reason for being in Jerusalem. Okay? The reason for this lesson is behind verses like 1 John chapter 2, verses 12 through 14. 1 John chapter 2, verses 12 through 14. And I write unto you, little children, because your sins are forgiven you for his name's sake. I write unto you, fathers, because ye have known him that is from the beginning. I write unto you, young men, because ye have overcome the wicked one. I write unto you, little children, because ye have known the Father. I have written unto you, fathers, because ye have known him that is from the beginning. I have written unto you, young men, because ye are strong, and the word of God abideth in you, and ye have overcome the wicked one. All right, what do you see in those verses? What do you see in those verses? What categories of people do you see? All different ages, right? Starts off with children, fathers, young men, children, fathers, young, and it goes back and around. And what does it say about them? Okay, that God abides in them, but differently, right? Each category has a different responsibility. Each category has a different role, right? If you look at those verses again, 1 John chapter 2, verse 12, starts off, little children, because your sins are forgiven you. Little children grow, right? Are little children strong? No, right? But it talks later on about young men, ye are strong. It doesn't say that about the old men, does it? It doesn't say that about the fathers, does it? Okay? So there is a progression in our lives, right? We are supposed to grow up from children, different strength, different abilities, a different role. You're supposed to grow up into young men, young women, different strength, different function, different role. You're supposed to grow up, fathers, right? Different function, different strength, different role. Okay? Titus chapter 2 is another example of that. Titus, Philemon, Hebrews. Titus chapter 2, verse 2. We can start in verse 1. Titus chapter 2, verse 1. But speak thou the things which become sound doctrine, that aged men be sober, grave, temperate, sound in faith, in charity and patience. Okay? Verse 3. The aged women likewise, that they be in behavior as becometh holiness, not false accusers, not given to much wine, teachers of good things, that they may teach the young women to be sober, to love their husbands, to love their children, to be discreet, chaste, keepers at home, good, obedient to their own husbands, that the word of God be not blasphemed. Verse 6. Young men, likewise exhort to be sober-minded, in all things showing thyself a pattern of good works, in doctrine showing uncorruptness, gravity, sincerity, sound speech, that cannot be condemned, that he that is of the contrary part may be ashamed, having no evil thing to say of you. All right, what do you see there? Again, same thing, right? You have aged men. This is your role. This is your function. This is your job. Okay? Young or aged women. This is your function. This is your role. This is your job. Well, how did you get to be aged? You had to come from young men, young women, right? Aged women teach the young women. Aged men exhort the young men, right? And then where did they all come from? In 1 John, as children. Okay? So again, in Titus chapter 2, we see these same things. Now, what is the example that we can take away from David? Now that you know, right, Chuck, you are not going to be young forever, are you? Right? So now what's the example we can take from David from that? How did David handle his transition? Not well. Chuck. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a complete divorce from walking with God.
Yeah.
And it happens to all of us.
Yeah.
Because our flesh is feeling sorry because whatever, getting old or can't do this or don't have that or whatever. Right?
Yeah.
And that's an occasion for Satan to have a stronghold.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what happened to David. But I think he learned a lesson from that. He repented. And, you know, the Bible says he repented. But he repented of these things that we're talking about. It doesn't say that explicitly, but we know
Right.
that's probably what was going on.
Right. So by this example of David, by the examples we see in Titus, by the examples we see in 1 John, does the Lord expect you to do the same thing from the time you're 5 until you're 95? Okay, so you say no, but you still try, right? You still try. Okay, so understand, right? Understand that these transitions do take place. Think about it even in the concept of a church. Has there only been one pastor ever here for the last, how old, 75? How old is this place? 60? Oh, okay. All right. 61 years. Has there been only one? Okay. Why not?
Bob wasn't feeling well and very strong. What is he? He was mid-60s, probably? Or had he even gotten to be 62, 63, something like that?
But why is the church still here?
What's the Lord's church?
Okay, all right. It's the Lord's church, right? So he puts different men in for a different time. Do they all face the exact same challenges and hurdles? No. Right? Personalities, were they exactly the same? No. Why not? God has a different role, different strength, different function, so that church grows for that period of time that he puts in there. Okay? How many of you have kept the same job your whole entire life? You only had one job ever? Wow. Only the one job. You never did babysitting? Oh, a real job. Okay, Chuck. How many kids you got and you don't think watching kids is a job? Uh-huh. Oh, okay. Well, see. Right? So there's not... We'll put Darlene under a glass case for a moment. But, you know...
Michelle's in it. She worked in American Family for 32 years. The only reason she quit is I was making some money.
Did she have the same role? Why? Why? Why did you go to different roles, Darlene? Ah, there we go. There you go. I had acquired strengths. They needed me in a different role. Okay, so how does God work? Right? How does God work? Exactly. Right? Hang on, Randy. We got to close here, pal. Right? That's the point behind this. That's the point behind this. Okay? So yeah, we know the story of David and Bathsheba, but yet there's an underlying change that's going on in David's life that God knows about. And God does the same things in your life. Different strengths, different roles to get you to a different place to fulfill something he wants you to do over here. All right? So be on the lookout for that and don't make the same mistake David made. All right? And with that, we'll have to close and end our epic adventure through God's Word today.